The wind howls across the empty dunes of Cape Cod, carrying grains of sand like whispers from the past. It's July 26, 1974. A young girl walks her dog through the tall grass near Race Point in Provincetown, Massachusetts. At first, she thinks she's stumbled upon something strange, maybe a pile of discarded clothing. But as she gets closer, the truth reveals itself in the most horrifying way possible. What she found that day would become one of America's most chilling unsolved mysteries. A woman, brutally murdered, her identity erased so completely that for decades, no one knew who she was. No name. No history. Just a silent victim buried beneath the sand. They would call her the Lady of the Dunes. And even today, her story refuses to rest. The windswept shores of Cape Cod are known for their beauty. Endless stretches of sand, rolling dunes, and the haunting cry of seagulls overhead. But in the summer of 1974, that beauty concealed something far darker. When police arrived at the scene, they were immediately struck by the brutality of the crime. The woman's body was partially buried in the sand, her head resting on a pair of folded jeans and a blue bandana, almost as if someone had arranged her deliberately. But there was nothing peaceful about it. She had been beaten, strangled, nearly decapitated. Whoever did this didn't just want her dead. They wanted her gone. The victim was estimated to be between 25 and 40 years old. She had auburn or light brown hair, pulled back into a ponytail with a gold elastic. Her teeth were in good condition, even showing signs of dental work that suggested she may have had access to money or at least good health care. Her fingernails were painted pink. Her legs had been shaved recently. And yet, there were no clothes on her body. No identification. No missing persons report that matched her description. It was as if she had been erased from existence. Investigators began piecing together what little they had. The folded jeans and bandana beneath her head suggested staging. This wasn't a random act of violence. It felt deliberate, almost ritualistic. Nearby, they found tire tracks. The killer had likely driven her to this isolated area. But beyond that, the trail went cold almost immediately. No witnesses. No clear timeline. Just silence. As the days turned into weeks, the case began to slip into obscurity. Without a name, the victim became a mystery no one could solve. But the questions never stopped. Who was she? And who wanted her dead so badly that they stripped away every trace of her identity? Now, before we go deeper into this mystery, if you're drawn to real-life unsolved cases like this one, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Shadow Files, and share it with someone who loves a good mystery. Because stories like this deserve to be remembered. As investigators continued their search, the details only became more unsettling. The woman's hands were missing. So were several of her teeth. These weren't random acts of violence. They were calculated moves to prevent identification. Fingerprints couldn't be taken. Dental records couldn't be matched. This killer knew exactly what they were doing. Even more disturbing, her skull had been crushed in multiple places. The violence suggested rage, or perhaps desperation. Some experts believed the killer may have known the victim personally. But if that were true, why had no one reported her missing? One of the most haunting aspects of the case was how carefully the body had been arranged. The jeans and bandana placed beneath her head created an almost surreal image. It didn't match the brutality of the crime. It felt intentional. Almost like a message. Years passed, and the case remained unsolved. But then, decades later, a strange and unexpected theory emerged. one that would capture the imagination of investigators and amateur sleuths alike. Some believed the Lady of the Dunes may have appeared in the background of a famous Hollywood film. In 1975, just 1 year after her body was discovered, the movie Jaws was filmed on Martha's Vineyard, not far from Provincetown. In one scene, a group of extras stand watching from the shore. And among them, some claim, is a woman who bears a striking resemblance to the composite sketch of the Lady of the Dunes. She wears a blue bandana. Her hair is tied back. Her facial features seem eerily similar. Could it really be her? If so, it would suggest she was alive just a year before her death. It would also mean she may have had connections to the film industry, or at least happened to be in the right place at the right time. But despite intense speculation, this theory was never confirmed. Still, it added another layer to an already baffling mystery. Over the years, several theories have emerged about who the Lady of the Dunes might have been, and who killed her. The first and most widely accepted theory is that she was the victim of a personal relationship gone horribly wrong. The level of violence, combined with the deliberate removal of identifying features, suggests someone who knew her and wanted to ensure she would never be recognized. A lover. A spouse. Someone close enough to feel intense emotion, whether it was anger, jealousy, or fear. The second theory points to organized crime. In the 1970s, certain parts of the East Coast were heavily influenced by criminal networks. Some investigators believe the woman may have been involved in illegal activities, and her murder was a way to silence her permanently. The methodical nature of the crime certainly supports this idea. Then there's a darker, more unsettling theory, that she was the victim of a serial killer. The brutality, the staging, the removal of identity, it all aligns with patterns seen in other cases across the country. But no known killer has ever been definitively linked to her. And finally, there's the theory that borders on the surreal. Some believe the Lady of the Dunes was never meant to be found. That her placement, her staging, even the location itself, was symbolic. A message left behind in the sand. A haunting reminder that some secrets refuse to stay buried. In 2022, nearly 50 years after her death, the case finally saw a breakthrough. Using advanced forensic genealogy, investigators were able to identify the woman. Her name was Ruth Marie Terry. At last, the Lady of the Dunes had a name. She was born in Tennessee and had lived a life that, until then, had been completely unknown to the public. The discovery brought a sense of closure, but also raised new questions. If Ruth Marie Terry was the victim, then who was the killer? Suspicion quickly turned to her husband, a man with a troubling past. He had a history of violence, and reports suggested their relationship had been volatile. But by the time investigators made this connection, he had already passed away. The truth may have died with him. And so, even though we now know her name, the mystery remains. Because justice was never served. The dunes still stand, shaped by the same winds that carried her story across decades. Visitors walk those sands, unaware of the history buried beneath their feet. But for those who know, the Lady of the Dunes is impossible to forget. A woman who was nearly erased from existence. A crime that defied explanation. And a mystery that continues to haunt the American landscape. If this story stayed with you, don't forget to like, subscribe to Shadow Files, and share this video. Because every time we tell these stories, we bring the victims one step closer to being remembered. And sometimes, that's the only justice they ever get.